Welcome back to Dad Space. It's Dave with you. I hope you're doing awesome. Welcome back to the show that's all about dads. A podcast for dads by dads. It's Dad Space. With the funky music. Just for you. And I have a challenge for you to consider today. And I learned this from a good friend in podcasting. His name is Dave Beckmeyer, and he shared with us a habit that he has. I want to tell you about Dave's habit, what he's doing, and I want to expand on it and put a challenge out for you that maybe this might be something for you to consider. Follow in Dave Beckmeyer's path and try this new ritual as a dad. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Let's grab some pebbles, throw them in a pond, and talk about a ripple here on Dad Space. Okay, so a friend of mine, his name is Dave Beckmeyer. He's the host of Outrage Overload. It's a great podcast that we all need right now with the temperature rising politically and in our world. We're just at each other's throats right now. It's just not a great look for us as we wrestle with all of the things that are in the news and opinions and people fighting each other. And it's really tense right now. So Dave Beckmeyer has a great podcast called Outrage Overload. He's trying to turn the temperature down in the world. And he comes at it from a scientific point of view, has great experts on his show, and it's a great podcast. So I would encourage you to go check it out, Outrage Overload, and a link in the show notes, as we always do, and a new podcast to add to your favorite podcast listening cycle. I would really encourage you to go listen to Dave's show. Dave was chatting with us about something he does as a ritual, and I really like it, and I wanted to expand on it, put it out there in front of you so that you could learn from his example. Now, here's what Dave does, and I'm going to give you an overview, and we're going to get into a little bit more. Dave went out, and he gathered a bunch of pebbles. Now, before I explain even more about this, we talked about drawing a line. Okay, and the line representing your life. And it could be as long as you want, but from your birth to your end of days, a line on a piece of paper or whatever, on the sand in the beach in front of you, but draw a line. And then put a little, like, on that horizontal line, put a vertical line where you think you are in your life journey. So if you're in your mid-50s like me, that's over 50 years have gone by, and you realize that there's probably, I don't think I'm going to be around till 100. So I know I'm not at midlife. There's less days ahead of me than there are days behind me, right? I've lived longer and I have less time ahead of me. So for me, my vertical line on that horizontal line representing my life is more to the right-hand side of the column than the left-hand side. If you're 22, you have probably more days ahead of you than you've had behind you, right? So draw a line where you think, if all things go well, and I'm healthy, and no accidents, nothing happens in life, I anticipate I have these many days left. Convert those days into weeks, and then come up with a number. So let's just use easy, simple numbers. Let's say I have, 58 weeks left. So I need to go out and find 58 pebbles, like tiny little pebbles you find at the beach, okay? Whatever your number is, I've just picked that out of the air. I'm not telling you I have that many weeks left. I don't know. I have no idea. I haven't actually done the math on this yet. And so I'm doing this with you in real time. But figure out, how many weeks do you think you have left? And you're like, Dave, that's really sobering. Well, the fact that you haven't thought about it is really sobering, because I think we just kind of trip through life and hope for the best. What I like about Dave's doing is he's got a purpose to what he's doing, and he has a plan. He doesn't share with you how many pebbles he's collected to represent how many weeks he has left. I don't think that's something, that's a number you don't have to share with anybody, but I think you need to do the math. So figure out, based on that line, that vertical line, and that on that horizontal plane, how many weeks I have left. Okay, whatever the number is, 200, 300, 50, 25, 82, and then go to your local beach and find the equivalent number of pebbles, little tiny pebbles, nothing huge, and just collect that number and then have a jar of them, okay? And put that jar somewhere where you're going to see it. And then what I want you to do, and what Dave does, is he takes a pebble out at the beginning of each week, puts it in his pocket, puts it in his coat, his pant pocket, something. It's with him daily for the entire week, that one single pebble representing the week. And at the end of that week, he kind of has his own little ceremony where he takes that pebble to a body of water, a river, a creek, a pond, and he tosses that pebble into that body of water at the end of the week, representing this week is now gone. I'm not getting it back. And it's kind of a reflective moment for him to go, how did I live this week? How have I grown? What have I learned? It's very reflective. It's very introspective. And that pebble he tosses, and it's a signifying that you're not getting that week back. It's gone. And you go back home and that jar has one less pebble in it. And then every week he repeats. Carries the pebble with him, kind of rubs it with his fingers when he puts his hand in his pocket for his change or his keys. Oh, there's the pebble. It's a constant reminder to him wherever he goes that each week counts. Now, I don't think a lot of us guys live on purpose. We live in the moment. We live in a reactive state. We never really contemplate that there's only so many weeks left. And like I said, it's not meant to be a downer, but it's meant to be a reality check for us as men, that we really need to live each week to the fullest and to understand that, again, we only have so many weeks. It's a really powerful metaphor and a very thought-provoking concept. It's a great symbolism as well. It has mindfulness built into this, and it's a tangible reminder of how life is so finite in nature. So I have some thoughts for you on how you can develop this idea a little bit more. The power of the pebble metaphor is that, again, it's a tangible representation of time. Each pebble in that jar represents a week, making it this abstract concept of time more of a concrete and relatable thing. You can see the jar, and you can see that the number of pebbles in the jar are reducing over time. It's a great visual reminder. That's why I love why Dave brought this up. Seeing that collection of pebbles diminish over time serves as a constant reminder to live on purpose. And that's what I really love about this. Also the ritual and the reflection part of this, the weekly act of carrying that pebble with you and then discarding a pebble encourages regular reflection on how you use the time you have. What's interesting about this is we have this number, this arbitrary number, this guesstimate of how many pebbles we have left in our jar, how many weeks we have left on this planet. Now, anything could happen to any one of us, and we might have more pebbles than we have time because we guessed at this many weeks, but anything could happen, right? So in a good, perfect world where everything goes great and we're healthy and strong and all that, we hopefully will live a life full to the end of that jar, and we'll have used up every pebble and still be here. Maybe put more pebbles in the jar. I don't know. That would be great. But there is a chance that even though we have best laid plans, something could happen. Anything could happen. And what I'm wondering is what happens to a jar with pebbles still in it and we're not here. For me, as I think of that, I was thinking about it at work. And that jar of pebbles in this story, this idea would be an amazing thing to have at your funeral. I know, Dave, you're really down today. Well, I'm just being contemplative and I'm just thinking about life right now. And to see a jar with pebbles remaining as a signal to anybody that would come and take time to be with my family when I'm not here, and see that jar and go, wow, what's the jar for? And then my family being able to explain to somebody what the jar represents, and that those were pebbles that I haven't been able to discard yet. I just think that's an interesting picture for anybody that would attend my funeral. So this whole idea that these pebbles reflect our anticipated lifespan, it's a very interesting concept. So I want to expand on this here in the podcast a little bit and kind of add to what Dave does, because I love that this came from Dave Beckmeyer, a big fan of this idea. But I want to add a little bit more to it and kind of expand this thought for you on maybe how you can apply this principle, this ritual, to your week and to the rest of your life, by just kind of adding some more flavor to the idea. So let's jump in. First, the whole idea about calculating your pebbles. The simple task of going down to the beach and collecting these pebbles, I think, is really going to make reality sink in for all of us. That, wow, whatever my number is of how many weeks I think I have left on this planet, and then the act of going down there and getting the pebbles and counting them out, coming home with a bag full of pebbles or a jar full of pebbles, just the act of doing that, I think, is a big step for all of us as dads. Again, with no conscious thought of the finality of life, we just kind of do life on autopilot, cruise control, like in our car. Take your feet off the pedals, you push a button, and you just hold on, basically. That's kind of how we do life, on cruise control. We just we can zone out. We don't have to be so focused. Life just is on autopilot. The idea of going to the beach, collecting these pebbles, and making the conscious effort of doing the math, I think, is a huge step for all of us to consider. You need to go through and determine your pebble count right from the beginning and figure out, how many days do I have left? Remember that line, horizontal line, and a vertical line on it, saying, here's where I think I am, and here's what I anticipate being the length of my life remaining. Put that into weeks, and then go get your pebbles. Count them out, put them in a jar, and put them somewhere where you're going to see them on a regular basis. The next thing is the whole process of actually selecting the pebbles. So one thing you can do even with your kids is to have them come with you and make it a moment where you with your kids go find the pebbles. Find the pretty ones, find the unique ones, find the oddly shaped ones, the ones that seem to tell a story. Find different colors, find different things, and make it kind of a thing for you and your kids to do. They might not totally understand why you're doing it, but what a great moment to have your kids go collect the pebbles with you at the beach. Get your kids involved in this process. And then make it a family activity that opens up conversations about life and legacy. And at the end of the week, grab one of your kids and make it part of your weekend to take them on your journey and explain to them what you're doing. And live your journey in front of your kids. Let them see it. I think that's an interesting conversation starter. Even if your kids are little, let them throw the stone. And let them just understand that Daddy's really focused on doing his best. Daddy's really focused on being here, being present in life. I think it's a great conversation starter for you and your kids. Include them in this. Don't be selfish and do this alone, but include your family in this. And share the idea with others as well. Dave Beckmeyer shared it with me and with my community, and I'm here now sharing it with you based on what Dave shared. So again, this is not my idea. It's Dave Beckmeyer's, Outrage Overload. Go check out his podcast. I just love the idea. Choose your pebbles wisely. Put some effort into this and involve your family if you can. And then the third part, what about having like a weekly theme to each pebble? To make this more of a guide to intentional living, assign a theme to each week's pebble, like gratitude, or adventure, or family time, or confidence, or love, or forgiveness. Add a theme to this pebble and focus on that for your entire week. Live with integrity. Be kind. Don't be slow to anger. Don't get upset with people. Say loving things. Do loving acts. And each week have a theme. Give it something that has meaning for you at the end of the week. Add a weekly theme to each pebble. I love that idea. And then next, share some stories. What I'd love to hear is if you do this new ritual, I would love to hear how this pebble exercise has actually impacted your choices, your relationships, your communication with your kids. How are things different for you by simply participating in this ritual of carrying a pebble for the week and then tossing it at the end of the week and being reflective? How is life different for you? How are you now living on purpose instead of living by accident? Share stories with your family, with your friends, with your circle in your community, with the other guys in your life, the other dads, and share stories with me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your stories. So go ahead, share your stories as you're learning. It's something I think you can really focus in on with intention as you have that pebble kind of rolling around in your pocket this week. Share your stories. Another thing to consider is a milestone marker. So when you're driving down the highway, you're going to see like signs that indicate your mile marker, like where you are on the road. So if you're ever in trouble, you can say, I'm at mile marker 32, and they'll know exactly where you are to send help. And in life, I think we need mile markers that help us to understand the changes that are happening with us, with our family, and it helps us to add significance to things that happen in our life and keep track of these things. Otherwise, again, they become such a blur. Maybe there's a special pebble that you can have around a birthday or an anniversary week or a significant life event. And that's a very special pebble that you carry with you. Do something that marks any significant milestone in the process of doing all this. I think it'd be really important to do that. So expand your concept of the whole idea of this pebble in your pocket and how you calculate the pebbles, how you choose the pebbles with your family, giving your pebbles a theme each week. Share your stories and make milestone markers along the way. Some practical ideas on how you can actually put all this into practice for you as you implement possibly this new ritual you've never heard of before. But here's some things to think about. First, storage. So how are you going to display and keep these pebbles in a way that you're going to see them all the time? I love the idea of a glass like mason jar or a glass, just a glass, whatever you got, something that you can see so you don't have to look in, but you can see it from a distance. That's one idea, like a wooden box, something. Just put it something where don't put it out of sight. Put it somewhere where you go, near your keys, near the front door, near your razor in the bathroom. I don't know, somewhere where you're going to see it on a regular basis. You're gonna interact with this thing every day, all the time, because it's always in front of you. Put it in front of you. Always put it in front of you, not behind you. Put it somewhere where you're going to know. Make sure you can see it at all times. And The other thing I would suggest to you is in the process of doing all this, you might actually want to start journaling. Like, I'm not a big journaler. I don't really write a lot of stuff. I'm not a writer, I would say, but in a sense, I'm kind of journaling with a podcast. So for me, a podcast is a great way to journal. This is what I do. I like to think it out loud into a microphone, and thankfully you show up to listen, and I really appreciate that. Find a way to capture your thoughts as you go through the process of marking your weeks. Because I think that's a journal or a podcast or a whatever. You could hand that over to your kids one day. And I like using my voice because then people can listen to this later. I wish I had a podcast from my father and my grandfather and his father. I would be great to hear their voices anytime I want. So for me, podcasting is a great way to do that. If you're listening to this going, dang, maybe I should have a podcast, I actually help people with that, and I'd love to help you. Even if it's just for you to journal in audio format, I can help you get all set up. Let me know. But journaling, whether it's on paper or with your voice, is a great way to kind of mark what's happening for you in the process of discarding your pebbles. I think this whole concept has the potential to deeply resonate with you and with your path and where you're going. It's really going to help you to promote approaching life in a mindful way. You're going to live with more intention. It's going to help build your family bonds with your kids and your partner. And it's really a unique and impactful way to approach the topic of making the most out of our limited time, especially for us as dads. So to Dave Beckmeyer for suggesting it, bringing up this and sharing a ritual that means a lot to him. Thank you, Dave, for putting this in front of us. And my challenge for you as a listener is to act on this. If it's not exactly using this Pebble format and you have a different way, great. But if you don't have any way of doing this, then adopt this. My suggestion, Dave's suggestion, to figure out the amount of weeks you have on this planet. What's left in your bank account? How many weeks you got? Go out, find the pebbles, get your kids to help you. Collect that amount of pebbles. Put them in the jar somewhere where you're going to ski them on a regular basis. Carry a pebble with you every week in your pocket so that it's noticeable. You know it's there. Just like you carry your keys or some change or whatever, your breath mints, whatever you got. Make sure that pebble is there with the things that you carry with you all the time. Take it with you everywhere. And at the end of the week, take that pebble somewhere where you can throw it into a creek or a pond. And when you do it, to my friend's podcast, What's Your Ripple? JJ has this great podcast as well. When you throw that pebble into the pond, watch the ripples and realize that that stone, that pebble, in that moment is gone forever, but leaves behind a ripple effect. And you, by living with intention, are leaving a ripple effect on your family, on your partner, on your community. You're becoming a better human. And those around you are benefiting from your intentionality and the fact that you're showing up with a purpose in life. So that's my challenge for you this week. It's really practical. It's not like super heady and hard to wrap your brain around. It's something you can do right now. You could turn this car around and go to that local beach right now and grab a bucket of pebbles and start. This is not hard. It's the fact that you're going to actually put the effort in to do this. So my challenge for you, will you do it? Or will you just let this kind of go through one ear and out the other ear and never act? If you want to live a life with intention, you need to do it and start it and do something that causes you to think and be more reflective. Stop being so reactive and start being more reflective. I think that will get us onto the right path. And when we're on the right path, we're going to see growth and we're going to make the most out of the remaining weeks we have. Because none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. So as best as you think, you might have 300 pebbles ahead of you, representing 300 weeks, but you might have 3 weeks left because of something that happens that's beyond your control. And that's not what we want for anybody. We want you to have like 5,000 weeks ahead. But again, we don't know what we don't know. So live life with intention. Go get a bunch of pebbles and try it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear if you're going to put this into practice over at dadspace.ca so that I can celebrate with you the intentionality of your life being lived in a purpose and encourage you. And I'd love to hear your stories. So if this is something you're putting into practice like Dave Beckmeyer has, then please let me know. Leave me a message and I'll throw your message here into the podcast. Let people know. I know you're listening and I know you're here and I know this is sinking in for you like a pebble into a pond. Now I'm asking you to act on this and tell somebody. Don't do this in silence. Don't do this and hide it. Do this in front of your family. Let them see you live on purpose and see the results of this. That's my challenge for you this week. This podcast is not meant to be passive. It's meant to be active. I'm asking you to do something now. I'm not asking you to do anything else but act on this content and put it into practice. And let me know if it works. Let me know how it's made your life different, better, more purpose, more reason. So you're not just kind of getting to the end of the week and going, what happened this week? I have no idea. And weeks become months, months become years, and eventually you're like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Let's live with purpose, one pebble at a time. Reach out to me at dadspace.ca. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to connect with you as a listener of the show. Thank you for making time to be part of Dadspace. Hey, thanks for listening to Dadspace. Thanks for hanging out to the end of the podcast. That's a great sign to wherever you're listening to this podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, fill in the blank, that this was a good podcast to send people to. So simply by listening to this point of the podcast, you're helping the show grow. So good on you. Thanks for helping us grow Dadspace. If you want to help us fill our cups over at Dadspace, head over to dadspace.ca. Dadspace.ca, simple website, right? Dadspace.ca. You can fill up our coffee cup, which helps us then to keep moving forward with the podcast and use our Buy Me a Coffee link over at dadspace.ca. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for coming back. And thank you for sharing. Because the more dads we can help, the better. We're all here to help each other grow in community. That's what it's all about. And without you, the podcast is pointless. There's no reason to do any of this. So you being here means everything. See you at dadspace.ca. Take care.